From floor plans to massing to presentation-ready boards in all less than an hour. Hi, I'm Gabe from Arcol, and today I'll be bringing you along for a full project redesign of the Nakagin Capsule Tower. Let's get started. Built in 1972, Kisho Kurokawa's Nakagin Capsule Tower stood as one of the most interesting pieces of modular design out there. With its 140 identical capsules, the units could be standardized, built cheaply, and carried in the backs of trucks. Unfortunately, the capsules are meant to be changed every 25 years or so, and with the stacking of these capsules onto one another, it made it so that changing one capsule meant changing the whole entire building. The building was later demolished in April of 2022. Usually, creating the layout for this type of building would require days of planning and different programs. With Arcol, I'm going straight from layout planning to floor plan creation to a presentation-ready 3D model. Let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is create the context for my site. I already have the copy and pasted address of where the capsule tower used to lie before 2022. Now it's just kind of an empty plot. You'll see right here. There we go. And first thing I'm going to do is recreate my site boundaries. I believe this is quite accurate to what the actual boundaries of the site were when this project was created. The first thing I'm going to do when I select my site on the right, you'll be able to see that there's a bunch of options I can play with, and I'm going to lower the setback to only be 5 feet because I want to use a big portion of this building. And then I'll create kind of the floor pattern of my building, and I'll just make a random extrusion. Does not have to be accurate right now. And I see that it's kind of popping out of underneath, so I'm going to go down and just drag that up, locking in on the z-axis, and there we go. I'll be able to change kind of the facade of my building as I change the floor plans, which I'm doing right now. Creating the floors allows me on the left hand side to have access to these floors independently. So right now the only floor plan that I have is floor plan A, which means that all of the different floors that are associated with that floor plan are going to look the same. And you'll see that as I have my split view on the left, you'll see the 3D model kind of change as I'm creating the layout for what is the first and the second floor of the building in itself. So as you can see, it's kind of like carved. I am going to change it along the way as I create the different capsules. The building does look different starting with the second floor. And that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to select every floor except for the first ones, and I'm going to assign it floor plan B. And that's when I'm going to start making my capsules. I'm going to center myself for the beginning. The way this tower is laid out is with 2 central cores, and the capsules are built around of those 2 central cores. Or should I say kind of like stacked onto that core. So what I'm going to do right now is make an axis, which is going to be the center of those 2 towers. And afterwards, I'm going to create a grid. I made the calculations on the side real quick for each of the different capsules. And the way these floor plans are like laid out is very gridded and standardized. You'll see later on, but all I did was get the measurements on a sheet of paper, but we will be building the kind of a matrix along the way. You'll see. I think it'll be really fun. It's kind of going to be like a Lego piece, makes you think of Sudoku. You'll see. Right now I am just going to create the actual I want to say the total floor area of the capsules that they can occupy, but it will be less. You'll see some of the floors themselves have less capsules, and the way that the capsules are organized from floor to floor kind of makes the area different, the floor area different for each floor. So you're kind of making doing a poor job of making a rectangle. That's on me. I'm just going to delete these excess lines so that I can have my actual grid. And you see on the left, it's automatically changing in the 3D view, which I love to see. I think it looks great. Just delete those excess lines. And we are going to finish our rectangle. Boom, there we go. We already have the shape of the actual tower. And now we're gonna basically, it's gonna be kind of a subtractive process, which is very different to the way the tower was actually built. It was an additive process, the two original cores being around, and then the capsules laid around the actual core. But the way I want to redesign this is kind of by subtracting from the original mass, having the total square footage, total floor, occupied floor area for each of the towers, and then I'm gonna remove some of the excess capsules. You'll see what I'm doing real quick. So here I calculated that the dimensions of a capsule is more or less 6.5 feet by 13 feet long. So it's a nearly 2:1 ratio. And what I'm going to do basically is create a grid pattern, and each capsule is going to occupy 2 squares of that grid. And the great thing is that the cores themselves also follow that kind of pattern, and they are square, being 13 by 13 feet together. So here I'm just using the offset tool, which makes things much quicker, and I'm going to be making this matrix that kind of resembles a structural bay for a floor, but of course it's not that much different. And we're just going to be laying these offsetted lines next to one another. And boom. So now we have our matrix. And the first thing I'm going to do is delete the segments to create my 2 core squares. Boom. So these 2, I'm going to rename them to core. And there we go. So those were center of my towers. And I'm just going to be removing the excess space that could be capsules as I go up. And I'm going to be making a new floor for every single one. Just going to put it to 11 floors. And as you can see on the right, I have a message that some of the elements are outside of the boundary. That means that some of my elements are outside of my actual site boundary, and I need to move them. And if I don't, I will not get accurate readings when it comes to other metrics from my site. So I'm going to cheat a bit. I don't want to move my masses, so I'm going to move the actual site area instead, which is not that big of a deal. Right now it gives me that pop-up message because, as I said, I'm using every single possible space that could be occupied by a capsule, but as I remove spaces, they are going to land more or less into the site building area. It's not going to be any illegal building, I believe. So let's start by making these floors. I'm first going to make the first floor. I'm going to start renaming them as I go. That's usually the way I work. I just create kind of like a floor template. If I have a lot of floors that look like each other, I'm going to create just like floor plan B, and just trying to make them as similar as I can. And then I specialize later on, going back and creating a floor plan 2, floor plan 3, like floor 1, floor 2, floor 3, which is a bit more accurate. There we go. Now we have my base, we have total shape. Now I'm going to start by looking at the actual site itself, at the building itself. I have a 3D model open. The good thing is that the building was kind of scanned, so you can still play with the actual shape of the building and study the different capsules that embodied it. So I'm being pretty accurate with my laying outs. Right now I'm just going to rename all the floors. And you will see, despite me being pretty accurate with the number of capsules and with the layout of them, they are in reality kind of offsets, so it's not true floors. Some of the capsules are here, and another one would be kind of like this, not midway through, but I want to say offset by eye. I would guess like by half a foot, which would I still consider it the same floor, and I think for representation purposes, it's going to be much better. Here what I'm doing is, since the numbers are massive, due to my different squares, I'm lowering the size of the actual labels. On the right, I could also remove the dimensions and stuff like that, but I want to keep them. I like having as much information as I can, and for me, it's not too kind of like cumbersome. If I were to make boards though, I would consider, if I were to make professional boards, I would consider removing some of those labels that are not very useful to my projects. If I want to show it to my professor or a client or something like that, and it wouldn't be very useful for them to see the total square footage or the dimension of a certain part, I would consider removing that. So I'm just going to count, and we're just going to start laying our different capsules. First, I'm going to make a function that's called capsule, and we're going to get to laying them out. All right, now that I've completed the whole of my building, I'm going to start with the basement level. I see that there's kind of like I want to say like a 10-foot offset, maybe something like that. That creates a sort of canopy between like the first and the second floor, which is kind of cool. It makes it more inviting on the lower floor. I'm just going to play with 10 feet and see how that is. Seems decently accurate. And a 10-foot cantilever doesn't seem too absurd to me, especially between the first and the second floor. Yeah, it's I think it's a great addition. It's probably the least cool addition of this building, but I think the fact that the whole kind of like basement level is kind of like canopied over, and it kind of makes a space for a street, makes it much more inviting, especially with this kind of very, I want to say, heavy feeling brutalist mass, even though there's like holes which kind of like aerates it. It still feels decently heavy to me. I think it's much cooler, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with how this came out. I really like kind of the the approach I took to this. I think it's pretty unique. Right now what I'm doing is copying the cores onto the lower levels because I forgot to do that at the beginning. And we are going to create a new function for this basement level, which I'm just going to put circulation, and I believe it's going to be kind of like the lobby space. I'm just going to put a 2-story lobby space because I'm not too sure what's on this second level. For this redesign, I could have put in kind of like amenities, or maybe a gym. That could be cool. But I'm going to leave it to your interpretation on what this space would be if it was to be rebuilt. There are actually efforts to recreate this project once again with capsules. I really like these capsule projects. I think they're really cool, these modular designs. Here I'm going to change the pricing for the capsules, and this is interesting. It's $158 per square foot, and that's the exact kind of like pricing. These capsules were standardized in price, which means that I have the exact price of each capsule and just divided that by the square footage, and that's what I'm going to put. And the only other area type is kind of cores, which I'm going to fully guess. But let's see the price, the cost in the bottom. I'm just going to put mechanic 150, and wow, 6.5. That's exactly right. If you look online to the price of the actual project, it is about $2,600,000 for the whole project. So we're right on the money. I'm actually kind of proud of that. And then we matched the actual the budget of the project basically to a T. And yeah, while we're here, I think I'm going to put the budget actually. Let's I'm not sure what happens if we put a bit under, so let's put 2,600, and if I just log that in, you'll see in the bottom that it warns you if you're above your budget, and it warns you by how much. So here I am above budget by 4%, and if I put 3 million instead, you'll see that I am well below budget with still 10% of my budget to spare. So that's pretty cool. I also have a bunch of other metrics on the right, and you can see that it's mostly capsules. I think this is a pretty decent use of space. The cores are also egress and circulation, so I don't feel like it's a too absurd ratio of cores to capsules. Here, now what I'm going to do is create some boards. I'm going to go to the board section and create some sheets. As you saw, I just basically selected sheets and went to tabloid. That's a classic one I used, and then I just copy and pasted. What I'm going to do now is populate my board with views. This is a cool function. On the first one I'm going to do is just lock in kind of a nice view that I want, and I'm going to go into a view tab on the right, and we're going to go to styles, and I'm going to change the background. I want it to be kind of like this nighttime vibe, and we're going to choose this nice blue. And actually, now that I think about it, I kind of want to play with shadows, which doesn't make too much sense in the nighttime, but the blue I chose would be kind of, if it's dawn, like late in the day. So we're going to choose 7:30 p.m. or something like that. Doesn't have to be too accurate, just has to be cool. It has to be nice for the views. So now I have that view, I can also change different things, and I like edges off the site context. It kind of like focuses you in to the building, and it looks weird if you focus on the surrounding context, but I think I want my client to focus on the building only, and just have kind of like that context as background in his mind. Once I've saved my custom view, I can put it anywhere on my sheets. I'm going to put it on the second sheet, and as you saw, I can just drag. I can drag it directly from my left-hand side views onto the sheets, and that's how you populate the boards. One interesting thing is that these views are changeable. If I go back to that custom view and I modify it, it will change immediately in the sheets. Now I'm going to create my title page, and I just went to the top left corner, and made a square. I want kind of like a gray accent on this, and I can just change the kind of the size of it. There's not much to say right here, and I'm gonna add some text. I'm gonna make it pretty big. And let's go to Montserrat. My idea for this is to have kind of like the half being the title and this like kind of gray background, and the other half being an image, a nice picture of the tower. Now that I found a nice title image for my project, I added a top view on the third page, and as you can see, there are no background on that top view. What I did basically is, after dragging it, you can press it on the right hand side. You are going to have different options, and the one I use is remove background, which I think is really nice for kind of an aesthetic look to your sheet. Here what I'm just doing is copy pasting my text so I can make sure that I have the same font size and etc. And we're going to add some titles to these different sheets so we know what we're looking at. Project location. And after that, I am going to, maybe I'm going to add some metrics to the sheets. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, since I'm adding metrics, I'm going to change this title a bit. This is not that accurate now. So site location and metrics. It's going to be more accurate. Let's go to our top left, but first I want to write the location of this site. And once again, I'm just copy pasting to stay consistent with the different fonts. I was taught by my professors that your portfolio should only have 2 or 3 different font sizes, which I didn't know until a while ago, and so I'm trying to force myself to kind of learn that. And here we have a very long kind of address. As you saw right there, I can change a lot of different things from the fonts. It's nice because it's basically all the editing capabilities that you would have in any other program. You know, I'm not missing anything that I would in anything else that I would use. You know, I could basically use this to make a whole portfolio, and I don't think I would, you know, lack any tools, so to speak. Here, I want to maybe put this this line to maybe call back to the intro, to my first presentation slide, to maybe separate things, because for my metrics, I'm going to have a text that's going to save the type of metric that I am going to present, and then I'm going to have the actual metric on the other side. So I'm thinking maybe I could have kind of a split, a half-half. That could maybe be nice, perhaps. There we go. Just gonna lay out the address just like so. So I'm thinking to myself, is that still a good idea? Too sure. I'm thinking the eyes of a Japanese architecture studio, which is going to be more organized, kind of square. I don't want to add my own bias from my time in Miami, where I have random forms and colors everywhere. I feel like that wouldn't be appropriate for this kind of project, which is this very organized kind of, concrete mass with sharp angles and nice planning that seems to react to some aspect of the site or such. So I want to keep kind of a minimalist feel while still not making the board feel strange. So as you can see, I'm adding some special text, which on the top left side, this is called dynamic text. And basically what this is a way to showcase different metrics of your site. And as you can see, once I select the actual icon on the right, I have the data I can choose. So I'm going to choose a 3D view so that it selects the whole of my building. And then after that, right on top, the type of information I want to showcase, there's a lot of information I can showcase. So here I'm basically choosing gross building area, average FAR, and the total cost of my building, and the site total area. And one of the cool things about these kind of dynamic texts, dynamic metric texts, is that they evolve as you change your building. If, for example, midway through creating my board, I realize I messed something up, I can go back, edit my building, and this text will change itself. It will adapt to the actual 3D massing of my building, which is very interesting and cool. And as you'll see later on, this is a case with a lot of different kind of like boards and metric stuffs. Here what I'm doing is just dragging in some floor plans, and I'm just going to change the scale of them so they can all be nicely scaled. And I'm just going to lay them out in a way that kind of makes sense. What I basically want to do is add a title on the top so you know which floors is which, and just to show the supposed clients kind of how these different floors were set up, how these capsules were sprinkled throughout the building. And I just think it's an interesting floor plan to see. This is not, you don't see this kind of floor plan all day. And once again, I'm just going to copy paste, going to line them up pretty nicely, and I'm just going to rename. After that, I'm thinking of putting on the right some more metrics. I'm going to show you what the metrics tables and metrics charts look like. Basically just other ways to showcase your metrics. And the cool thing about metrics charts is that you can showcase a lot of different metrics at the same time. And you'll see it works basically the exact same way as the metrics text, the dynamic text, sorry. All very intuitive, pretty simple to use, but still gives you some freedom, you can still do a lot of things with this. With most programs, you kind of have to think about the balance. Most programs are either very complicated but do a lot of things, or are very simple and do very little things, or very intuitive but do like a very small amount of things. And here I feel like it's kind of got both at the same time. It's very simple and intuitive, but yet I can basically do whatever I want. I can do great kind of custom boards. I can do very, very intuitive floor plans that are kind of like fleshed out with different functions and stuff like that. I have some very nice massing that I can do. It's basically ready to present to my studio professor or my client. And it's all nicely organized and packed neatly. And we haven't even touched the kind of collaborative aspect of this, which is very cool. Here, as you can see, I removed the base of my site, so the whole context is gone, so I can have just an image of my building by itself. We're going to reload that. There we go. It's going to be just a known image of my building, which I think is going to look nice. And I'm thinking of the left-hand side to add some more metrics. First, I'm going to look at some pictures because on my last sheets, I want to have some nice aesthetic-looking images of the actual project once it's completed. Because I don't have that right now. If it were a proposal, for those that have watched the Hudson Yards proposal video, redesign, I created some AI 3D renders, which look pretty cool. But here, since it's an existing project, I'm basically not touching it. I'm going to stay faithful and just use some images that I find on the internet that I find very cool to kind of display. Here I'm going to add some charts, and as you can see, I just selected a view, and here with area type count, since we only have one area type, basically, it's just going to show that. So instead, I'm going to do breaking of total area, and it's going to show once again my different functions, show the square footage of each of it, which could be an interesting kind of metric to show. As you can see, I can choose the different types. I have the donuts, I have the summary, I have a bunch of different things that I can cycle through, which look nice. And also I can change the position of these metrics. Since I do not want the writing to spill over to my building, I'm going to choose this one where the bars are on the bottom and the text is on top. And I think it looks great, it's readable, it's nice. Let's get to the last and final sheet, where I'm just going to upload this nice split picture where we get a close-up of the actual units and a nice panoramic view of the building. And there you go. You've got a nice presentation board for the towers, and I'm pretty happy with how this came out. Would love to see this building again. We'll be sending it over so it gets built one day. And yeah, hope you enjoyed.